Hello everyone, I'm Rhoda and welcome to Rhoda Cards. Today's card tutorial is of a fancy fold or pop-up card called the Pop and Twist. When you open it, the inside pops up and twists out to reveal the sentiment or images or whatever you want to put in there. It just pops out. To close it, you just press these together and close it that way. I love fancy folds and I love pop-ups and interactive cards, so let's get started on making this card today. Let me show you the tools that I'm using today. You're going to need a bone folder, a trimmer, and different pieces of cardstock. Now, the big piece of cardstock, this is 10 3/4 by 8 1/2, and we're going to score this several different ways. Now you take an 8 1/2 by 11 sheet of cardstock and you just trim 1/4 of an inch off of the long side. So this would be the 11-inch side and this is the 8 1/2 inch side. So you're going to cut just 1/4 of an inch off the long side. We'll get back to that in just a second. Here are the other pieces of cardstock that you're going to need. This, I used a pink base on my card, and that's this right here, this pink base here. And when you cut your base, you're not going to cut it traditionally, like taking your 8 1/2 by 11 sheet, and usually we stick it in the trimmer this way, and then just cut it down the middle. You're not going to cut your cardstock that way. You're going to take your cutter and you will put the cardstock in this way. So this is the 11-inch side. This is the 8 1/2 inch side. You're going to take your trimmer and you're going to put your cardstock in this way. So the long side is up and down. And I cut it at 4 1/4. So just put it in your trimmer, put it to 4 1/4, and then cut it in half this way. And that way you will have your base. Now you want to make sure you cut it that way so that it's lengthwise like this, because if you cut it the other way, the mechanism isn't going to work. So make sure that you put it in lengthwise and cut it at 4 1/4. So that's the base. Then you're going to need 3 pieces of pattern paper. And I just used some flowered paper that I had in my stash. And you're going to need 3 pieces. They're all 5 1/2 inches long. I have all 3 of the pieces here. This is the 5 1/2. There it is. I'm trying to find it here. 5 1/2 by 4 1/4. That's the piece that goes on the base. And then you need 2 pieces that are 5 1/2 by 3 3/4. So you need 2 pieces that are 5 1/2 by 3 3/4. And I use the same pattern paper. You can use different pattern paper. You can use solid cardstock, whatever you want to use. I've just used the same pattern paper for all 3 of my pieces. You will need a contrasting piece of cardstock for the inside piece, and that is 11 inches by 3. So this piece is 11 inches by 3, and we're going to score that as well. You need 4 pieces of white that we're going to stamp on, and they're 2 3/4 by 2 1/2, and you need 4 of these. And these are the pieces that we're going to stamp on. Now, I also have a piece that I stamped on and colored on the front. So if you want to do that, then you would need 5 pieces, 5 of these white squares. This one was a little bit smaller because when I stamped it, I trimmed it down to fit this piece of yellow that I had. So I just had that. And this is the yellow piece for the front is 2 3/8 by 2 3/8, and that front piece is 2 1/4 by 2 1/4. Again, these measurements, I had these measurements, so I just stamped it on that and put it on the front. But that's the size they are. You can make it any size you want. You can make it bigger, smaller. You don't even have to have an image on the front. That's just what I did. Today's video, I'm going to show you how to actually make the mechanism and then put the card together. And you can use whatever you want to use to decorate the card. Use whatever paper you want to use to decorate the card. I'm showing you what I did, but you can use whatever you want to decorate it. So let me show you the mechanism for this fancy fold. Again, you're going to need one sheet of 8 1/2 by 11. And on the 11 side, you're going to cut 1/4 of an inch off the end of this cardstock. And then you're going to need a scoring board and or a scoring tool. So I have a scoring board here. I'm going to try to get most of this into the camera so you can see it. And I have a stylus which I use to do my scoring. And this is the stylus that I use. Now you're going to score it both the long way and the short way. To start, we'll just start with the long way. And long way, you're going to score it at 3 7/8, 3 7/8, 5 3/8, and then 6 7/8. So those are the 3 score marks that we need this way. Then we're going to turn it short, and we're going to score it at 2 1/4, 4 1/4, and 6 1/4. So that's the scoring that you need. Again, short wise, you're going to score it at 2 1/4, 4 1/4, and 6 1/4. Long wise, you're going to score it at 3 7/8, 5 3/8, and then 6 7/8. And I will show you this. Those are the directions that I had for that. That's all the scoring. There's a lot of scoring involved, but once you get the score pieces down, it's really not that difficult to do. This is a really kind of an easy card to make once you get all the measurements together. Once you get your score lines done, you're going to cut out the 4 corners. After you score these, you'll see that the score lines make these corners. So from here and here, you're going to cut these 4 corners out. Once you cut them out, you can use scissors, you can use your paper trimmer, however you want to do it. This is what it's going to look like. So it kind of looks like an odd cross. Kind of an odd cross here. And this is what you're going to start folding to make the mechanism that works the pop-up part inside your card. Now, I took my bone folder, and you're going to take the 2 side pieces of your cross, and we're going to fold that middle score line down to this middle score line. So what I did is I took my bone folder and I put it right in the center of that, where the 2 score lines cross, right in the center. And then I take this piece and I fold it down to meet the score line at the bottom. And where they line up, that's where we crease it. Right through there. And I use my bone folder to crease that. So that's one side. And then we're going to do the other side. And pull that down to where the 2 score lines meet. Right at the end. And crease that. So now you have these 2 creases right in the center. Now for it to be really exact, those cross creases should go right through the point of where the score lines are. This particular one is off just a little bit. So we'll have to trim this down when we get it all together. If it comes exactly, you won't have to do as much trimming. And you'll see what I mean in here in just a minute. So now we have our 2 score lines here that where we did the fold. These pieces, the score lines on the ends, are going to fold in. And see how this point, you've got the 2 arrows right here that point towards each other. These pieces are going to fold in and point, so that when you put it together, it looks like a little house. This is upside down, but it's going to look like a little house. Okay. Again, these side pieces, the middle pieces fold up, and then they fold in. So you've got that triangle right there, or the little house. And then you want to just get that little point in the top there and fold it down. And this is where you fold it down, take your bone folder, and crease everything down. There we go. And see, then when you open it, see how those pieces pop out? There we go. Only when you put it inside the card, it's going to open this way. Okay, so we get all that crease down. Now I took my scissors and I trimmed these up to match on the sides. I just kind of trimmed these edges up a little bit on the sides here, just so that it would be, this is what I was talking about, when if you get that piece that's off just a little bit in the middle, you'll have to do some trimming. So that's what I did. And you can see this piece is off right here too, but I just took my scissors and I trimmed it all the way around. And then you have this piece. I trimmed it on the sides. So that's the piece that goes on the inside. Now, these 2 pieces here, the 2 pieces that we did, well, let me get the other one. These 2 that are 5.5 by 3 3/4 are going to go underneath this piece on the inside. I'm sorry, they're going to go on the inside of the card. So they're going to go right in here. Now, there's 2 different ways you can do this. All right. See how this piece goes up to the edge there where it starts to fold. You can trim this down and just have the square down at the end of your card. Or you can put it up a little bit and trim down that triangle in the center, so that when you open it, it's got that triangle point inside. That's what I did with this one, with the triangle that goes in. You don't have to do that. It's a little bit more complicated to do that, but it's not too difficult. What I did was I closed this up, and then I put the paper where I would want it on here, lined it up, you know, with whatever amount of white you want it to see around the edges. And then I took a pencil and I traced it here. And then I did the same thing on this side. I lined it up where I wanted it with the white edges, and then traced it. And this is, the pink is going to be on the back, so nobody's going to see that. And then I just took my scissors and I trimmed it down. So just took this out. And these are scraps, so you can use them for something else. I did use the scraps on the last card and used a punch with little flowers and punched out a bunch of flowers out of this pattern paper for another project. So these little scraps of paper, you actually can use them for other things instead of just tossing them. If you don't have anything to do with them, then toss them. But they can be used for other things. And then this piece is going to go right inside here. Now, if this doesn't go up enough, it sticks out at the bottom here, you can either trim it off on the bottom or trim it off up at the top. Either way. Either way works. So I just trim a little bit off the top. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect up inside the triangle up here. Because unless you hold the card sideways, nobody's really going to see it. So let me just glue this down in here. Okay, and then I'm just going to put it right down in here. Again, just position it however you want it. What you want to make sure that you do is that your paper is inside these score lines, so when you fold the card, the paper doesn't interfere with the card when it's folded. Same thing with this side. I'm just going to trim a little bit more off the top here. Measuring it with a pencil is just a quick measurement. It's not exact. So that's why I have to trim a little bit more off of it here and there to get it to fit. You can use your ruler and your pencil to make marks and try to measure it that way and get it all exact, but I don't want to take the time to do all that, so I do it this way. I originally saw this in a video with May, who showed how to do this without using any dies. And I thought that was brilliant because I don't have a whole lot of dies, especially for doing things like this. And I thought it was great to be able to make it without that. So now we have that piece that's all decorated, and it's going to go inside the card this way. Now, you can use dies and make pieces that go across that middle part. Hearts or, you know, whatever. There's dies out there that you can use to make those. And some of them are pretty cool. So now I'm going to take this. I'm going to set this aside for just a few minutes. And I'm going to show you this piece. So this is the middle piece that we did. And when you score that, this is 11 by 3. And you're going to score it at 2 3/4, 5 1/2, and 8 1/4. Those are your score lines. So 11 by 3, score it at 2 3/4, 5 1/2, and 8 1/4. And then I have already stamped and colored out my little elephants. And I used Whimsy stamps. These stamps were given to me by a friend, and I thought they were so cute. And there were 4 images which would work perfectly with this card. And I found this stamp, You're Kind of a Big Deal, in my stash, and I thought that went with this really nicely. So I used that stamp in the center on this one. And I just thought that was super cute. So those were the stamp sets that I used for this. So we have this piece, and then we have our base. This is our base, and I've already put the pattern paper down on it. Now, when you put your card in the center here, you want to make sure that you use a very sturdy glue, because you want it to hold as you open it and shut it, because it's going to be taking a little bit of weight when those pieces fold out. So use a very strong glue. I don't use my tape runner for this part of the card because, like I said, it needs something really, really strong. So I use liquid glue for this part of the card, and I'm using the Bearly Art glue. I really like this glue. I've been using it since Christmas, so I've had it for 3 or 4 months. And I had another liquid glue that I had before this, and I did not like it at all. But I really like this glue. It holds really well. It does dry clear, and it dries quickly. I think it dries a little bit quicker than other liquid glues. So when you put your liquid glue down, make sure that you're ready for it to stick, because it does dry pretty quickly. So I'm going to take my glue and glue this area here. Make sure I have that all covered. I'm going to hold this down and then just close the base on it. So that piece just goes in. I'm just going to hold it for a few seconds and then flip it over, and I'm going to do the same thing on this side. And then flip this piece down, and there we go. All right, we're going to use that glue here in a minute on the inside piece. So there's that piece. That's what you want it to look like. Okay, so the main part of the cross here and the smaller piece of the cross here. Okay, so that's that part of the cross in the card. Now this is the inside piece. And when you fold it, you want it to look like this, where the two sides are valleys and the middle one here is a mountain. So you have the mountain in the middle and the two valleys on the end. So it's going to look like that. That's how it's going to look. And you fold it up. Okay. Mountain, two valleys, fold together. And this is going to go here. So when you pull it, it's going to go along the edges here. Now, if you want to make this piece thinner this way, you're going to need to trim this piece down, because you don't want that piece to stick out farther than this piece here. Okay, you don't want to see that looking out. Also, when you glue it down, what I use is this score line here on the edge as my line for lining up this score line here. You can put it out farther than this score line. You don't have to have it right up at the score line there, but you don't want to have it all the way out either. It's not going to be able to be glued down completely flat, because when you fold this up and close the card, you don't want it sticking out the bottom of the card here. Okay, so when you glue it down, you want to keep these pieces like 1/4 of an inch, the score line here like 1/4 of an inch from that score line. So it's going to pop up just a little bit when the card is open. The middle piece will pop up a little bit when the card is open. Now the next thing to remember when you're gluing this down is you're going to put your glue on the top on one side. Sorry, my cat. She wants to get involved in this today. You want to glue the top on one side and the bottom on the other side. You don't want to glue both top or both bottom, because then the card isn't going to open and close. You want to make sure you do the opposite sides, okay? Because when it closes, it's going to close diagonally. All right, so put the glue again on the top on one side and the bottom on the other side. Again, I use good liquid glue because I want this to stick when it's being opened and shut a lot. So I put that about 1/4 of an inch from that side and about 1/4 of an inch on this side. Press it down. I just hold it for a couple of seconds so it'll glue. And then I hold it by the opposite corners to make sure that the glue is going to hold when I close it the first time. And then you close that. And it's not sticking out the bottom. Okay, and I have a little bit more room, so you could stick it out a little bit farther. And give that a good press. You can flip it over and press it from the back. And then, there you go. You can kind of hold again. I'm waiting for the glue to dry there. Make sure that dries really good there. I'll put my pen back in my glue. This Bearly Art glue is really good because it comes with a pen. And then we can decorate the front. So I have this little elephant I'm going to stick on the front. And stick him right there on the front. And I have this bow that I made with some ribbon. I got this ribbon, and I just made a bow with it. And I just use white. You can use whatever color matches your paper or whatever you're making. And I'm just going to use a glue dot to stick the ribbon down. So just use a glue dot, and I just stick a ribbon right here. Now I thought this could be used as a baby card. This could be used as a birthday card, or just about anything. There's no particular sentiment, so it could be whatever you want it to be. But that's how the Pop and Twist card works. You open it, it pops out, and it will stand up. And you can put a white piece here, so you can write on that for your recipient. You can add a little white piece there. You can stamp on that. You can add flowers, or, you know, whatever you want to add to that there. I just wanted to concentrate on showing you how to do the Pop and Twist card. So thank you so much for joining me for this tutorial today. I hope you like the card. I hope you're going to give it a chance. Maybe try doing it yourself. If you haven't, click the subscribe button down underneath the video. And if you click the little bell, it'll give you notifications of when I put out a new video. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope to see you at the next video.